We'll continue our discussion on Inyane Geirus, on the topic of conversion, and specifically the question, does a fetus require conversion? Is it possible to do a conversion in utero? So let's go back a step. There seems to be an apparent contradiction in two different Gemaras in Yevamos. The Gemara in Yevamos on 97b points out that there's a general halacha we learn out of ger sheniskayer kekatan shenolad dami, that when someone converts, they're like a newborn baby, and therefore, technically speaking, let's say a brother and sister convert, in theory they're not related and they can marry. Practically speaking, midrabanan, we forbid it, obviously, but the rule is when you convert, you have no relatives. That's the Chasam Sofer, right? That's the source for ger sheniskayer kekatan shenolad dami. That's how we know in Minat Torah. So that's the general rule. So the shaila the Gemara has in Yevamos is, that's true if you have two brothers, a brother and sister, and they convert after they're born, so everyone agrees ger sheniskayer kekatan shenolad dami. But the Brisa says, what if a woman's pregnant with two boys and she converts in utero while she's pregnant? So the question is, so the question is, do we say ger sheniskayer kekatan shenolad dami? Are those two boys in the womb related to one another or not? So the Gemara says the twins are considered brothers. That when a woman converts while she's pregnant, the twins, the brothers, are considered brothers. So it's mashma from this Gemara that we don't apply the principle of ger sheniskayer kekatan shenolad dami, is because there's no conversion going on here. They were born from a Jewish mommy, and the Pasha says, therefore, they're born from a Jewish mother. It's like anyone born from a Jewish mother, the kids that come out are brothers and sisters. So so from the simple reading of the Gemara in Yevamos 97b, it seems to be that if a pregnant woman converts, the kids are Jewish, and they're born Jewish, and therefore they're related. However, we seem to get a different implication from another famous Gemara. The Gemara in Yevamos on Daf 78a, the Gemara tells us something differently. The Gemara talks about the Gemara has the whole discussion about, again, a pregnant Gentile comes to convert. So the Gemara talks about the question how does the process work? So the Gemara gets into the sugya whether uber yerech imo or uber lav yerech imo. In other words, is the fetus considered part of mommy, or is it considered an independent entity? So the Gemara goes through the issue that when a pregnant woman converts, so the Gemara says the fetus does not require another immersion, but not in stricha tefillah. You don't need another tefillah afterwards. So it's mashma from the Gemara that the fetus is considered uber yerech imo, is the limit of mother, and therefore a conversion includes the fetus. And the Gemara says, no, what about uber lav yerech imo? Maybe it's not. Yeah, you could argue it's uber yerech imo, and therefore it's one conversion. Or no, you could say uber lav yerech imo, and therefore, when the woman is immersed, so the fetus is immersed as well. What about the laws of chatzitza? Of makbid, of robe of the body being kotzeitz, and here it's kulos. So the Gemara says, no, Hainu Ravisa, that since it's a normal process, so therefore it's not considered a chatzitza. And therefore that's why the fetus doesn't require an additional immersion after birth. In other words, so it depends. If you learn Uba Yerachimo, so then you are the mom. Whatever happens with the mom happens to you. But if you argue Uber Lav Yerachimo, then she's doing her own conversion. So what do we see from this Gemara? When it's trying to work out the process of how a fetus converts. It's masha from here that they're discussing how a fetus converts. Uber Yerachimo, Uber Lav Yerachimo. So if Uber Lav Yerachimo, you need a conversion. So therefore we see that from this Gemara it's mashma that someone born a fetus in utero, when the Gentile one converts, is not Jewish, and you have to finish the process after birth. So the question is, how do we reconcile the two Gemaras? And the Gemara in Yevamos, the first Gemara we quoted, 97b, it's mashma that twins are brothers, and therefore they're born Jewish. But the Gemara in Yevamos 78, it's mashma that they have to go through a conversion process. Whether or some form of conversion process, mashma they're not Jewish. So how do we reconcile the two Gemaras? So different approaches in the Achronim, whether in utero conversion. Obviously, we see doesn't prevent them from becoming brothers, and some want to say there's no real conversion taking place in the utero. There's a whole discussion in terms of what's actually happening. However, there's a famous answer from the Dvar Avram. The Dvar Avram points out that he thinks this is the issue, whether a conversion is required for a fetus is dependent on our issue of here, whether Uber Yerach Imo or Uber Lav Yerach Imo. If we say Uber Yerach Imo, that the fetus is considered part of the mother, there's no need for a conversion, because the mom becomes Jewish, she automatically is Jewish. If you hold that it's Lav Yerach Imo, it requires a conversion. So that's what he wants to say. The Brisa would say that the twins are considered brothers. That follows the opinion of Uber Yerachimo. Now Gemara here follows the opinion of Uber Lav Yerachimo. That's what the Dvar Avram wants to reconcile. And as well, he has a very interesting approach. He wants to say that maybe as well, that if he gets into the question of can you be partially Jewish, partially non-Jewish or not. So he says if the Uber, so he wants to make a distinction, he says, between the development of the fetus before the conversion of the mother and that's in the development after the conversion. Therefore, he wants to say the twins, how are they twins? They could be siblings because of their connection that was from the time that was after the mother's conversion, and yet the twins require their own conversion because of the non-Jewish. So either way, it's a whole major discussion in the Rishonim, Achronim. How do you reconcile the issue whether conversion is going on or not? But the question is, my nafkamina. What's the difference if I say the child's Jewish by the fact that the mother's conversion worked on the child, or by the fact that the child was born to a Jewish mother? Either way, the child's Jewish. So actually there are many nafkaminas. We'll discuss a couple, whether the child was born to a Jewish mother or not, whether or was the mother's conversion. when the conversion applied to the fetus. In other words, whether this child is a convert or not. So, number one, first the Ramban points out, is everyone agrees, let's say this child's a male, so he's going to need a bris milah. The question is, why does he need a bris milah? So, according to the Ramban, the way Ramban learns the Gemara, he needs a milah to finish the conversion process. According to the Ritva, that even if we want to taina a conversion is required, it works in utero, and therefore the only milah he's getting is l'shem mitzvah. So the nafkamina, when the child does a milah, does he do it l'shem geiros or l'shem mitzvah? Another nafkamina would be along the lines. The Gemara tells us in Shabbos Kuf Lam and Hey Amud Beis 135b. He quotes the Brisa that when you do milah on a ger, it doesn't require to take day 8, and therefore you should do it as soon as possible. So therefore, that's what I think the Dvar of Ram points out. If the conversion takes place in utero and the circumcision after the birth is the milah l'shem geira, so there's no reason you shouldn't delay the milah until day 8. However, if it's a milah l'shem mitzvah, so then one has to do milah on day 8. And that also leads to another very a contemporary issue about, as well, whether you can do a milah on Shabbos or not. Because milah, it's only dependent on day 8. So if it's a milah l'shem mitzvah, so then you have a chiyuv to do it day 8, if day 8's on Shabbos. But it's a milah l'shem geirish, you won't be allowed to do it on Shabbos because it's not considered a milah b'tzmana. You could have done it another day. And further practical difference, the Gemara says in Ksuvis, and Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, the sugya of ger katan, someone was converted while he's a minor. So the Gemara talks about you have the option to reject or accept the conversion when you become bar bas mitzvah. So some of the Achronim point out the Avnei Meluim. So if you're assuming the conversion takes place in utero, there is a conversion taking place. So at 12 and 13, you'd have a right to reject the conversion. But if the child is Jewish by the virtue of being born to a Jewish mommy, there'd be no option. Of course, you have the option, as always, as anyone, you have free choice to keep the mitzvahs or not, but you want the option to be Jewish, and then you're already Jewish. Another nafkamina is brought down by the Duggal Merubava, the Rabbi Yitzchak Lando, the author of the Nod of Yehuda. Let's say a woman converts without telling Beis Din that she's pregnant. So a woman converts, so obviously Beis Din knows what's going on. Whatever if the woman's pregnant, but it's not obvious that she's pregnant, and she doesn't tell Beis Din. So Duggal Merubava says, whether the child is Jewish is contingent on this dispute. He says, if the conversion takes place in utero, if there is a conversion, then the Beis Din obviously would have to know that the mother is pregnant, because it's like a ger kat, the Beis Din's converting the child also. If there's no conversion in utero, there's no requirement for Beis Din. So that would be another nafkamina on whether you can convert in utero or not. Not whether you can convert in utero. That's another nafkamina. If in this case, what would be the status in terms of would you need would Beis Din have to know that she's pregnant? If there's no conversion, you don't know, but if there is, they would. And that's a very modern day question, which is very relevant today. In what's the koveya of motherhood in the case of an egg donor or a surrogate motherhood? Do we consider the genetic mother the halakhic mother, or do we assume the birth mother the halakhic? So, this could be, this definitely ties into the question. Because if we assume that conversion is necessary, even though everyone agrees she came out of the birth of a Jewish mother, so if she came out of the birth of a Jewish mother, everyone agrees she's Jewish, or I should know. Everyone agrees, so therefore that would be the question. If coming out of Jewish mom is enough, then it shouldn't be a question. So from here, when I bring a raya, we see that genetic mother also plays a role, and it's a very practical question in terms of egg donation and surrogate mother. So to summarize, we just pointed out the apparent contradiction in the Gemaras. The Gemara tells us that the Gemara in Yevamos on 97b tells us that the twins converted in utero are considered brothers, mashma they're Jewish. Yet we know the Gemara in Yevamos 78 that it talks about how the conversion process is working, mashma they're not related. So some say it depends. That could be the issue, uber yerachimo, uber lav yerachimo. One Gemara is talking about that these Jewish kids uber yerachimo, another one uber lav yerachimo, or maybe you could be half Jewish in the time before him, but we might have kamina. If either way, you're coming out Jewish, whether you did the conversion in utero or you didn't need a conversion, so might have kamina. Nafkamina is, number one is, if the child's male, so he requires the circumcision. Is it a meal l'shem geras or a meal l'shem mitzvah? Whether you have to do the milah on day 8, whether the meal could be done on Shabbos. The issue of child could reject the conversion or not. If it was a conversion in utero, why not? If it was born Jewish, no. The dagul merivava. Let's say a woman converts without telling base in the pregnant, so if she's Jewish, they don't have to know. If the fetus is going conversion, then it would be a problem, and that would be the issue. From this Gemara, it's mashma that the mere fact that you come out of a Jewish woman, everyone agrees the woman's Jewish, would that be enough to be kovei mother? So we'll have to continue on this. So we'll discuss some inyane geirus. So the Gemara in Krisos on Daf Tes tells us, how do we look? Where do we go to? Well, how does a Gentile become a Jew? What's the procedure? How does it work? So the Gemara tells us we look towards Ma'amad Har Sinai. We just celebrated the Yontiv of Shavuos, and ultimately we're all Gerim. And the Gemara goes through the different processes the Jewish people did in Mitzrayim. So we know Har Sinai had a lot of things happening. There were kolos of brakim, there were the tremendous light shows, it was up on the mountain, there was a shofar. So what does the ger need? Do we just have to, do we blow shofar at the conversion process? We tell them to go to a gym membership so they can work up in good shape to climb up a mountain. What exactly do we take from Har Sinai? A lot of things happen at Har Sinai, but what do we take in terms of the Indian of Geirus? So everyone agrees that at Har Sinai was a major transformation. We became full-fledged Yidden. Everyone agrees. It's an interesting machlokes Ramban and the Bali Tosfos. What was the status of the Avos? What was Kodem Matan Torah? So according to the Bali Tosfos, basically the Avos had a regular status of Ben Noach, and the halacha as well, Havlad Holech Achar Av, and how do we determine who's from who? So that was the Din Kodem Matan Torah, whether for the there were no Jews, that how do you know what nation the person's from? We follow the father. Basically there was no type of quasi-kedusha. They had a regular din of B'nai Noach, and they made a total transformation at Har Sinai. In contrast to the Ramban, which points out, no, that they went from Ben Noach, and once Avram came along, Yitzchak, Yaakov, there was type of a quasi-kedusha. In other words, we say, Asher Kedushano b'mitzvosa b'tzivano. How do we get Kedushas Yisrael? By mitzvahs. So Avram, the Rambam goes through the whole list. We had the 7 mitzvahs. Avram added Yitzchak, Yaakov, and from in between, from Avram Avinu to Matan Torah, we still weren't full-fledged Jews, but we had a quasi-Kedushas Yisrael already. Something was happening. And according to the Ramban, at Har Sinai, we went from something to full-fledged. As in contrast to Tosfos, seems to be it was more, we went cold turkey, did the regular Ben Noach, and we moved to Jewish. So whatever the machlokas is, everyone agrees at Har Sinai, we became full-fledged. So there are many things that happen at Har Sinai. What do we take? So we have to look to our Torah Shabbat Peh. The Gemara tells us there were 3 factors: Mila, Tevila, and Karban. We'll have to have a separate share on where does Kabbalah's mitzvahs fit in, if it fits in, and the issue of a beis din that we'll come into in the upcoming weeks. But there's Mila, Tefillah, and Karban. So let's start with Karban. So Karban, great. I guess we don't have to worry about Gerim today, because, again, that's a discussion whether the Karban was Likuva. So if you assume the Karban was Likuva, so how can we have Gerim today? We can't bring a Karban. Even according to the Rambam, that in theory there's Kedushas HaMikdash, but practically speaking, we're not going to bring a Karban, so maybe that's it, no Gerim until Yemos HaMashiach. So comes along the Gemara and tells us no. They learn out from a pasuk, L'doro Seichem. I think it's in Parashat Shlach, L'doro Seichem, that we learn out, it says by the conversion of a ger, it says for all future generations. So the Gemara learns out that we can accept a ger at all times. So therefore, post Beis HaMikdash, during the time of the Churban, so then you only need Mila and Tefillah, just Tefillah if you're a woman, but a Karban is not Likuva. Interesting, some Rishonim use that in terms of the famous Shaila. They ask, how could we convert anyone? The assumption is, assuming we need a beis din, and assuming we need smuchim, so how could we do it? So there's a whole discussion, separate share on that, but one of the answers are, it's L'doro Seichem. The Gemara doesn't say this, some Rishonim say this, that we see that since the Torah tells us we can accept Geiras for all future generations, so obviously implied is that we knew that it would be a beis din, there's not going to be smuchim, and therefore it's the same halacha as Karban. So either way, so the Gemara says you need the Karban. So, but Bizman Hazeh, with Doro Seichem, we don't need it. So interesting, the Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai made a takana that when, even though today a ger doesn't have to bring a Karban, however, he has to, or the Brisa talks about you had to set aside money, so when the Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt, you'll have the money set aside so you can bring the Karban. That was the takana, original takana in the Gemara. I'm not sure if Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made the original or he changed it, but he's involved in it. And then they came along and said no, because what happened was, it was a problem of Me'ila Behektish. The problem was people were going out to a restaurant, and they just grabbed the money and they just took the hektish money and they'll be more behektish. It was causing more harm than good. So the takana remained. So they nixed, I think, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's takana. However, as the Rambam codifies the halacha, they only nixed the part that you set aside money today. But the fact, Bizman Beis HaMikdash Kayim, when the Beis HaMikdash is going to be rebuilt, any Gerim who are still around, who are still alive, will have to bring a Karban. That's codified. It'll be interesting. I guess it'll be a busy time. The first, I guess, Lahavdil, when the new iPod comes out or iPad, you have these long lines waking up in the Beis HaMikdash. You're going to have between all the Gerim and all the women who just had children, all those people are going to be running to to bring the karbanos. So I guess the first couple of days, weeks, it will be packed and it will go back to normal. But the Gemara Rambam says the halach is you have to bring a karban. It's just that you'll just don't have to set aside the money now. And in fact, there's an interesting discussion in the Avnei Nezer. What happened before he brings? So now it's a ger, and he hasn't brought a karban yet. So the Gemara tells us in Krisos on Chesam Beis that before a ger brings a karban, he can't eat the kachim. He doesn't have the full kedusha, and perhaps he can't marry a bas Yisrael until, in other words, it's assuming that the karban is likuva. He's not a full-fledged Jew. So the Avnei Nezer raises the question: what about Bisman Beis HaMikdash Kai? Those who already became gerim already, but there's still now the Beis HaMikdash is up, and you could bring a karban. So up until, are they allowed to eat the kachim, and for that marry a bas Yisrael? So the Avnei Nezer says, in the fact that Bisman Hazeh, we just let them do Mila and Tefillah, just Tefillah, and they marry a bas Yisrael, we assume it's a full-fledged Yidden. He says it's not a problem. There's still a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah b'alma that he still has to bring a karban, but it's not likuva in terms of him, his kedusha. So obviously it's not a problem. However, the Zecher Yitzchak, I think Rabbi Yitzchak Panovitcher, quotes from once I bring a raya from Tosfos, he disagrees and says, no, Bisman Beis HaMikdash Kayam, before a ger brings a karban, he can't eat kachim and he can't marry a bas Yisrael. So, and they discuss yesh lachkor. What about if you're married to a bas Yisrael and you didn't bring a karban? Whether you have to actually divorce her or not? That seems unlikely, but that's what some achronim raised within the shita. But the bottom line is, we assume like the Avnei Nezer, that the bottom line is, L'dorosechem, he's a full-fledged Jew, and there's a mitzvah, b'yam, it's not likuv, he still has to bring a karban, but he continue eating, he can do everything any other Jew could do, eat the kachim and marry a bas Yisrael. So that's regarding the karbanos. So that we don't have. So now, for a male, you only have mila and tvila, and for a woman, you just have tvila. So, how much is lechatchila? How much is likuva? Like we have different mitzvahs, like chalitza. We have chalitza, the chalitza sasandal you have the rakika, you have the spitting, and you have the kriyas hapsukim, all minat Torah. So what's likuva? What isn't? So everyone agrees the kriyas hapsukim isn't likuva. It's only lechatchila. It's a machlokas in the Gemara regarding the rakika. We paskin, I think the rakika is a miyakev. So we paskin b'diavad, you just need the chalitza alone. So how does it work by gerus? Do you need mila and tefillah, or is it enough just to do mila or tefillah? So that's a discussion in the Gemara. One says mila, one says tefillah. Wouldn't, if I was arguing one, I would go with tefillah, because we see it works for a woman. So you could argue, we see tefillah is the gerus, and maybe mila is, and they added tosefes kedusha. But the bottom line is, we paskin that you need mila and tefillah. So for a man, they're both liikuva. So there's an interesting shaila that happened about 150, 200 years ago, a big tumult in Yerushalayim. I think the Be'er Yosef, or Yosef Salam, was out of town, probably fundraising, and the Rav was Rav Asher Lemel, and there was a case of a gerus. I think this person from Morocco came over, and he wanted to convert, ger tzedek, so he did so. So we know you need mila and tefillah. So what's the order? Before I get to this question, what's the order? So the Gemara says in Yevamos Daf Mem Zayin, first you talk to people out of, okay, are you kidding me? You want to become Jewish? The whole works. And then after you see they're sincere, so miyad, you do the mila right away. and then you do the tefillah after. So the Gemara tells us the order: first Mila, then tefillah. All the Rishonim are bothered by, like, it should be the opposite. What's more logical? Do the tefillah first, then you can do the Mila, then you do right away, let him recover. Because in between the Mila and tefillah, you might need, I don't know, days, weeks, whatever it takes normally to recover before you go into the mikvah. So why is it the Rishonim ask that the order is first Mila and tefillah? So, and there's a discussion in the Rishonim how far you take it. Is this orderly kuva as well? In other words, the Ramban writes the Mila, the Seder Hageres is not likuva. Yeah, the Gemara says do Mila first. You know why the Gemara says do Mila first? Because that's more of a measuring stick. A person's talking the talk. He says he wants to be a Jew. Okay, let's see. I don't want to go through. Let's bother the Beis Din, get the tefillah, and then he chickens out before the Mila. Let's get the hard stuff over with, and then we assume once he did the Mila, he's committed. So it's just a pragmatic issue, the Ramban writes. But Lamaisa, once you do both, it doesn't make, if you do a Mila and the tefillah, bottom line, it doesn't make a difference. And other Rishonim say no, it's likuva. That you dafka have to do the Mila, I guess, maybe that's the way it happened by Matan Torah, that they did the Mila actually by Karban Pesach, before the Karban Pesach, and they did the Tefillah later. So other Rishonim hold it's likuva. You dafka have to do the Mila and then the Tefillah. So the question is, so we said, so the case was, so he did the Mila in the Tumah in Yerushalayim, he did the Mila, and I guess it took him a little longer to recover, and it was Shabbos, and he didn't get a chance to do the Tefillah. So he asked Rav Shalema, what should he do? Like, is he a Jew or a guy? Like, should I keep Shabbos, not keep Shabbos? So Rav Shalema said that, I might be mixing up who said which, but one of them, Rav Shalema said, oh no, you're a guy, go ahead, you have to go ahead, and you have to, go into the back of the room and go write some letters. In fact, this reminds me of a mice that there was a ger once asked, like, I don't get it. I know, he doesn't say it, but I know, but Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky said, what do they tell a ger? They should just light a match on Shabbos. That's what he recommended. So there was this ger guy at this point, he said, I don't get it. But I'm going to a Hilchos Shabbos shir, and I know the halacha, there's something called a malacha tzricha lagufa, and a malacha she'ein tzricha lagufa. And therefore, a malacha she'ein tzricha is only pater abalasar. So therefore, I don't get it. Minat Torah, I'm still keeping Shabbos. So why? So how could Rabbi Yaakov say? But how could you tell me? So someone asked Rav Pam this question, Rav Pam in Torah V'das, and he said, I guess he's familiar. He said a guy could rely on Shitas HaRambam. The Rambam Shita is a malacha she'ein tzricha is chayav. Or it reminds me of another story similar. It says, so they told the guy, you have to go ahead and desecrate Shabbos. He said, I'm carrying. I learned this. No, but there's an Erev. No, I don't hold from that Erev. The joke goes. But either way, so welcome to Judaism. The Rav Shmuel says you're a guy, go machal. Then, I guess it's word spread that what he was machal Shabbos, and the Beis Din in Yerushalayim who took care of Geras went crazy. They said, what are you doing? You're a Yid. You can't machal Shabbos. The guy totally confused. So what happened was they sent a letter to the Binyan Sion. This shows the godless of the Binyan Sion. If the Gedolim in Yerushalayim are writing him a letter, and he says, I guess as the story goes, the Rav calls the couple in for shalom bayis issues. So the wife says her story. He says you're right. The husband tells his story. So the rabbi says you're right. And the wife says, how can we both be right? He says, you're right also. But the point being is, so he says you're both. He says you're right. So really, Rav Shalemo's right, strictly speaking, meaning it is true. Mo v'lo taval ki'ilu. you're not a Jew. We pass, you're not Jewish. However, he says the minig is that someone who's mol v'lo tavo, you do keep Shabbos. And he suggests why. What is that based on? Why? If everyone agrees a milah without tefillah, not everyone, but it's a machlokas in the Gemara, but we pass in la halacha that you need both. So what's pshat? So he says because we have historical precedent. Because what happened? When did the Jews do the milah? Before the Karban Pesach. They kept Shabbos in Mara, and they didn't do tefillah until Matan Torah. So we see Mo V'lo Tavo, but that's a good raya, just a nice agada that, we could discuss. But Maisa, that's what the minhag seems to be, that for some, that it could be for a prospective ger as well, who's already starting to keep everything. So Mo V'lo Tavo. So again, I guess they discussed perhaps maybe you lose the shame guy, but everyone agrees you're not a full-fledged Yisrael, but maybe it's mafkiya, the shame guy, and therefore there is no isser on you to be Shabbos anymore. Kodesh Shabbos, so it's enough to take the isser of being a guy keeping Shabbos. However, it's not, but you still have to go ahead and, and do the milah later. So that's what, that's what they pointed out. So it was, Mo V'lo Tavo, we know normally he isn't a Jew. However, in this case, it was okay. So in fact, they point out there's also a shiloh by milah is, let's say you can't do a milah. Let's say it's a ger or it's a guy at this point. Let's say you can't do a milah for medical reasons. In fact, I had the question. Must have been about 10 years ago in Hamilton or more. I mean, it wasn't like a real ger because this person really wasn't. It wasn't really going to keep anything anyway, but I'm saying hypothetically, the shiloh he must have been he was a sick man in general. He must have been 60s, 70s, but he had diabetes, whatever it was. Medically speaking, it was a sakanas nefasha, a suffix sakana to do a milah. He said he wanted to do it anyway. I wasn't going to do it, kill the guy. Yeah. But anyway, but the point being is, I was just more interested in the alumnus of it. Not his case wasn't real shiloh because wasn't really keeping anything. He came to shul, and I think they ended up burying him in the temple cemetery because he associated being Jewish, but we couldn't bury him in our cemetery, so he wasn't Jewish. So either way, so they point out that so the case. So what's the story? So where is there precedent that you could convert someone without a milah? So there's a tshuva, a rash, but they talk about the Rishonim, if someone is castrated, if there's nothing there to do, so then many Rishonim say it's not a problem. Then it's kind of like Ke'ilu, like a woman. We'll get into it more next week, but the famous case, the Gemara in Yavamis, a Gentile woman who's pregnant, and she converts during pregnancy. Right. So again, we'll get into the different Rishonim there next week, but according to some Rishonim is that it's a good, whether for boy or girl, you're 100% Jew. How could this where's the milah? No, he has a din of a girl because it's impossible to do the milah. It's not physically possible to do, even though maybe today, I don't know, some people say you can do some things in, I don't know if medical science is here, you have to do a milah while it's still inside the womb. But during the time of the Gemara, it definitely wasn't feasible, and that would be a question if it would change. But either way, so we see that we have that cloud. So if it's impossible to do a milah, so then we see tefillah works. The shaila is, what happens if it's not impossible? You can physically do it. It's just a medical issue. So that's a major issue. It has to do. There's a sugya in the beginning in the sugya in Yevamos about an oral kohen. A kohen, we know, wanted to eat truma, has to have a milah. If you don't do milah, you're an oral, you can't eat the truma. So the Gemara and the Rishonim discuss, what about the following case? Mesu achiv machmas milah. The brothers did the milah and they died, and now the halacha says no milah for you.
The third.
Right. Okay, so maybe later on when he gets healthier, but right now you can't do a milah. So the shaila is, does he have a status of an oral? So it seems to be a machlokas rishonim, the Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam, in terms of whether whether that person's an aro. What's the issue? On whether this case of a Kohen aro is so. Has to do with it's a famous shtickle Torah from the Brisker Rav, as on the famous kasha. If Avram Avinu was Makayim Kol Torah Kulo, so how come he waited for me? Well, there are many answers. Pasha is because the bris means two people. Or there's the famous Maral Diskin Gadol HaMetzuva V'Yosa, and you only can do it once. But the Brisker Rav, he has a much more subtle lumdus. He points out in the Meshech Chochmah something similar as well. He says, what came first? Was it the chicken or the egg? It was nothing with a person. It's the mitzvah of Milah, which created the status of an aro. I mean, before having a physical aro, big deal. Everyone had a foreskin. There was no problem. Right. And in fact, that explains when Avram Avinu, right before, Rashi says he had to bow down. He couldn't go on the ground because he couldn't stand in God's presence. He spoke to God many times. This is the first time since he got the mitzvah of Milah. In other words, so he has the whole Yisod. It's the mitzvah of Milah that creates the Chalol Shem Aro. So therefore, so perhaps that's the lumdus here, the Rabbeinu Tam Shita, who wants to tell he's not an Aro. Maybe you could argue either way. You could hold the mitzvah. Everyone maybe holds it's the mitzvah of Milah that creates the status of an Aro. The machlokas is, according to Rashi and Rov Rishonim, he's chayiv in Milah. He's just an honest, but he's still an aro. And according to Rabbeinu Tam is you're not even halakha says you don't have to do a milah, so we view as someone who's not. I kind of like to use Shalmi. There's a discussion about sach and shemen shel truma by a child. So there's so clearly on day 4, so Yerushalmi seems to say it's okay because the mitzvah of milah doesn't even get into the shayla of Yerushalmi is the night of day 8. In other words, what's pshat? The pshat is really it should be at night, except we don't do it. It's a technical thing, or that's what he declares. But beforehand, so that's the issue because it's the mitzvah of milah, and the mitzvah of milah isn't until day 8. So therefore, that creates so that's a discussion there. So that seems to be the issue here. If halacha says that you can't do a milah, okay, so do I view like I don't have a I can't do it, therefore I'm not on, therefore I can do the conversion. No, so it's an interesting Maisa. I'll conclude, you got it, right? You have Dave. So this is, someone, Rav Chaim Ozer Gruzinski, he went around Europe, collecting money, and he got from this Balabas, used to give him money. I guess he had on his wall, he didn't know this guy was a ger. So I guess he had a sign. The sign on the wall exactly what happened. The Zecher Yitzchak Panovitcher, the case was this is a guy who couldn't do a milah because he was sick. Mm-hmm. So Zecher Yitzchak said it was okay. He's the one who wrote his. So Rav Chaim Moses saw it. He went crazy. He said, "You're not Jewish," and this and that. And he said, in general, he didn't like the Zecher Yitzchak paskening shilas. He says, "You belong in the base. You're excellent at pilpul, this and that. Please don't pasken shilas for people." But that seems to be the minhag olam seems to go with Chaim Ozer, that today, Lamaisa, if it's a medical case where you can't do a milah, that we don't, again, there's what to discuss, but it seems to be the consensus. The lumdus seems to be that, but I think we go with Chaim Ozer that we don't accept it. So therefore, so we see. So we had the discussion. So we had the 3 things you need: milah, tefillah, and carbon l'dorosechem. So therefore, we still keep it even today. But we take a gear even today. They'll have to bring the carbon, and they'll be busy then. And then we said maybe that's why also why no smuchim. And then we discussed the order milah, tefillah, machokas. We showed him if the seder is likuva or not. And then the issue of Molval Taval, the Tomo in Yerushalayim, could you keep Shabbos before you did the Tefillah? And the issue of, let's say, medically speaking, a ger can't do a milah. So do we view it like he's castrated, like he doesn't have the gid, or no, it's likuva, so that seems to be the machokas with Chaim Ozer. And the Zecher Yitzchak, the minhag seems to be like Rav Chaim Ozer, that we're strict and we don't accept the ger.